going on, everybody? My name is Jared, and finally I have done my blind camera comparison test. So it might not be as scientific as some people's, but what I did was I took three phones, the Pixel 2 XL, the OnePlus 6, and the iPhone 10, and in no particular order took a bunch of photos, outside, inside. I tried to get some low light in there. There wasn't a huge nightlife in my area, so I did the best at taking some low light just around my house, outside, things of that nature. And to really see how the OnePlus 6 stacks up to some of the best competition out there. So I did only use three phones. I didn't have my hands on the S9 when I did this comparison, and at first I did start to include my DSLR photography camera in the mix, but I didn't want to just add strenuous photos for no reason. So these are going to be the three phones, like I said, the OnePlus 6, the iPhone 10, and the Pixel 2 XL. All of them I shot on automatic. All of them had normal HDR enabled, and on the Pixel I made sure to not have HDR advanced enabled. It was just normal HDR. We did some bokeh shots, we did some selfie shots, and like I said, some landscape, some colors, and really just to see how it compares a much cheaper phone to some of the best cameras in the market. So anyway, I'm going to play the slides through. I made my slides up before I did this part of the video, so I don't know what particular order I'm going to put them in. But see, we're going to go from left to right, A, B, C, and the phones in order are not going to change. So the photo in A will always come from the same phone, B, C, and so on. So after the slides play, I'd like for you guys to drop a comment as to which one you like the best, and then I will tell you guys which one that is. Alright? So here they are. So there you go, there's the photos. I think in general, all cameras performed very well. And when you look at it, actually, it's hard to distinguish in some shots which one is actually better or worse. The one thing that I can tell you is that one camera in particular did a pretty good job overall. One of them is more of a warmer tone, and the other one is kind of somewhere in the middle. So anyway, the first camera in slot A, the left slot, was the Pixel 2 XL. The middle slot was the OnePlus 6, and the right slot was the iPhone 10. So, as a whole, personally, I think the Pixel 2 XL did the best job. It has the best detail in a lot of shots. The iPhone 10 also has some really good detail. The OnePlus 6 does great in a lot of scenarios, which is what's amazing to me because of the price difference and what it has going for the phone. There's a lot of photos that I had a hard time telling which one was better. One thing I want everyone to take note of is all cameras perform slightly differently. So what I noticed in my comparison is that the OnePlus 6 and the Pixel 2 XL shot cooler, meaning the more blue tones, the whites were more blue than yellow. And then the iPhone 10 was actually more of a warmer tone. So you got more yellows and oranges in a lot of the different scenes. I think they all, in their own way, did a great job. I still The Pixel 2 XL has my vote because I think those photos to me look the most attractive, but that is not to say the OnePlus 6 did a bad job. It actually, fared far better than I expected, especially with my last instance with the OnePlus phones. So I really think they did improve a lot on their camera, especially in low light. The one photo that you see of the inside of my computer, while I might not think is the most attractive photo, it actually did probably one of the better jobs at exposing the photo evenly, where you could actually see the motherboard and parts of the board, where on the iPhone and the Pixel were dark and more, they focused more on the highlights, and the OnePlus did, I'd say, a better job overall. Yet I'd say the more attractive photo would be from either the iPhone or the Pixel. Either one was great. When it comes to bokeh shots, the iPhone did a decent job. I had a hard time with the iPhone getting the subject in range. That was the group photo, my group pop figure. Anyway, the Pixel did a very good job. It has continued to do a good job with bokeh shots with its AI processing. And the OnePlus 6 actually didn't do too bad either, but the one thing that if you do stop and take a look at that photo is the detail in the legs of the figurine. The OnePlus 6 did not have as much detail as the Pixel or the iPhone. Another one photo that I'd like to point out in particular is the picture of the tree looking up. Overall, all cameras came out with a great photo, one that I think would look good if you posted on social media or anything like that. But again, the finer details, if you look at the bark on the bottom of the tree, both the iPhone and the Pixel had more detail in the bark, and the OnePlus looked more white. So if you start seeing a trend, the OnePlus phone was brighter. Now, I looked at the metadata of all the photos, and I think I found the answer. So when you actually take a photo, or in photography, there's a few things that you can look at to adjust your settings. And all these phones both have pro modes where you can figure those out. Things that you adjust are the white balance, the f-stop or the aperture size, the shutter speed, and the ISO, which is the light sensitivity of your camera sensor. So with smartphone cameras, you can't adjust aperture unless you're the S9 Plus, which it has two different settings. So that's a fixed number. That does not change. That's the 1.7 or 1.8 aperture that reviewers talk about. The ISO, though, is how sensitive that sensor is to light. And what I noticed looking back at all these photos and every photo that I took with the OnePlus in the past week is that the ISO never got lower than 100. So the lower the number, the less sensitive to light. The higher the number, the more sensitive to light. And when I use my professional photography camera, I generally will dial back the ISO, and I will have a faster or slower shutter speed depending on the situation to accommodate that, because a lot of times with a high ISO you get blown highlights. So what I mean by that is whites look white, really white, and you lose detail. That's the photos of where you look at the tree stump and you don't see all the detail. So the ISO was at 100 and your shutter speed was faster, meaning that it allowed less light into the sensor. Whereas the Pixel and the iPhone both had ISOs under 100, and I believe the Pixel had an ISO of 50 and the iPhone was right around there also, allowing less light to be as sensitive in that sensor, and I think that made it for a better detailed shot in areas where the sun was hitting it. And I did check afterwards to go into the OnePlus 6 Pro mode, and you cannot get the ISO lower than 100. I don't see why you can't. I don't think that is a limitation as of the hardware, but more of a software sort of thing, and I would like it if OnePlus 6 included the ability to reduce that more, and then adjust your shutter speed or even white balance to accommodate that. Not that white balance has a lot to do with the light, it just is more the tone. So that's the one thing I noticed. So the OnePlus 6 did not get as low of a setting in the ISO as the Pixel and the iPhone X. Now, I don't know if that would actually have made the photos even closer together. I could actually put both the iPhone and the Pixel on an ISO of 100 and adjust from there to see if you get a similar shot. But that might be the limitation of the camera right now. So the Pixel 2 XL, in my opinion, did the best, had the best exposure overall. But I will say that there are some photos that I actually like the color representation better of the OnePlus 6. There's one of the lily of the valley, the purple flower, where actually the Pixel took a beautiful photo, but it wasn't as true to life of the colors of the actual lily of the valley. It was a lot lighter purple, not as dark. Both the iPhone and the OnePlus 6 did a better job actually having accurate colors. So, all in all, the OnePlus 6 is a fantastic shooter, especially for $600. I know a lot of people have been talking about the OnePlus 6 versus the Pixel 2 XL, and at the full price of the Pixel 2 XL, I couldn't recommend the OnePlus enough, but as the price drops in the Pixel as the next series gets released, I personally would always say go with the Pixel. But again, that's just my opinion and nothing scientific about that. But back to the photos, the OnePlus 6 overall, in an everyday shooting point-and-shoot situation, is not going to disappoint you. It takes some great photos, the definition looks good, the colors are nice and accurate, it's not overly warm, and it's more a little bit towards the cool side, and I'd say not as cool as the Pixel, but it takes a very accurate photo. And that is something that I can appreciate, because if you do like to dial up the saturation or contrast or whatever you want to do post-processing, you can still do that, especially when you shoot in RAW in the Pro mode of the OnePlus 6. All the other phones also offer some sort of adjustment after you take the photo, whether it be in the iPhone Photos app, you can adjust some of the colors and things like that, or the Pixel, you can adjust obviously in Google Photos. So I was very pleasantly surprised. I wasn't expecting that sort of response out of that camera. The 5 and 5T were good shooters, but I would say mediocre at best. For a lot of the different situations, colors were very muted, and this time, that is not the case at all. So, as far as their slogan of the speed you need, I would actually put more emphasis on that better camera, because that, to me, is a major selling point, especially, again, the old motto of the best camera to have is the one you have on you. It's nice to have a very capable shooter in your pocket at all times, especially coming in at such a great price tag of under $600. So, OnePlus 6, very, very surprised, very happy. The one thing I will note, and I will let all of you know, is that where the OnePlus 6 lacks is it tends to over-sharpen in a lot of situations, especially when you zoom in or do 100% crop. You'll see over-sharpening artifacts, right? So, say you took a picture of a person or a portrait of a person. If you had artifacts happen, which happened on my photo that I took of myself, you almost saw more, I guess, artificial wrinkles than you would say. And it makes things, when you zoom in, kind of jaggedy and artificial looking. So it definitely over-sharpens in a lot of situations. At the normal photo size, you don't necessarily see it, but if you plan on zooming it in, cropping it, or something like that, you will notice it. The OnePlus does not have a telephoto zoom anymore. The other sensor is used for low-light photography. So that when you do your zoom, your 2x zoom, it is just a digital zoom, and you will tend to have more artifacts there than you would, say, in the 5. That is where they actually have the full telephoto camera. Outside of that, the low light was pretty solid. It wasn't awfully noisy, which is kind of grainy looking. So that was a nice plus. And where the Pixel and the iPhone made more definition in the light, the picture of my lamp photo, all of them were very, very different photos, but all of them did a good job. So every camera is going to be innately different based on its hardware, its software, everything like that. I'd say Google, in general, the Pixel 2 XL creates a saturated, good-looking photo that may look like the days of old of the Samsung phones of a very vibrant, saturated photo. The one thing I will say with the Pixel 2 XL is when you take a photo, I don't worry a lot about having a bad photo come out, unless my subject moves or I'm just awful at shooting that day. The iPhone X, I would say, is another example of something that when you point and shoot, you're going to get a good photo, probably 99 out of 100 times. Very unlikely of you to have something that you look back at and say, man, that was just awful. Selfies on the OnePlus 6 are definitely not as nice as the Google Pixel 2 and the iPhone X. Both selfie cameras in those two phones seem to do a better job with the skin, making sure you don't look too smooth or fake. Now, I know there is beauty modes, and they were all off on the OnePlus, so it just tended to make my face look flat. And the one thing that I'll take from Unbox Therapy, Mr. Lou, is the beard hair test. When you take the photo, when you zoom in and you can see the individual hairs, that's a good photo. And you can most of the time on the OnePlus 6, but the times that you don't, it just kind of looks flat in here and you don't get the definition, the different colors. The one thing I will also take note is if you look at the picture of my cat, the brown cat, Nala, and you zoom in, you can actually see the individual hairs on her head in all three photos, but you have more definition, more range in the Pixel and the OnePlus, or the iPhone. So I don't want this video to seem like I'm really knocking the OnePlus 6. I'm just trying to be honest about your shooting experience if you're primarily going to use your phone for taking a lot of photos. And especially, again, like I said, as the price drops of the Pixel 2 XL, as we close in on that launch date of end of summer, and photography is your focus, it might be advantageous to look at the Pixel 2 XL. So anyway, bottom line, if you're going to look at the OnePlus 6 and ask for the very best camera possible out there in the smartphone world, unfortunately, you will not find it. The OnePlus 6 does not have the top of the line, and again, I wish I had the P20 Pro in front of me to try that 40 megapixel camera also. But it is a very capable shooter, especially at the price point it is. Comparing it to other $500 phones, which I am going to do shortly with the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2S, I'm anxious to see how it competes with those because it is truly on the heels of the flagships here in the US. The Pixel, the iPhone, even the Samsung. I would actually say that the OnePlus 6 has as good of a camera as the Samsung S8. So that was last year's Samsung, and that was a great performing camera. But it says something about the company OnePlus that now coming in at a higher price than usual, they are still able to at least come close to the actual flagships. And I know the moniker of the flagship killer does not necessarily apply to OnePlus anymore like it used to, but I would still say the OnePlus 6 is so darn close to the actual flagships that you might as well consider it a pseudo flagship, a one step down in not necessarily performance, but obviously features compared to the big guys. It may have more features than, say, the Google Pixel 2 XL as far as things in the OS because Google runs stock Android. But it is almost there competing with them on a lot of levels. And that just shows me, it shows the community that you don't have to have a $1,000 and $1,200 phone to compete. So not only has OnePlus showed us that you don't need to have a $1,000 phone to compete with the big names like Samsung, Apple, and Google, but they've also shown us just how much they can do with what they have. And I certainly look forward to what happens in the OnePlus 6T or the OnePlus 7, because I think it's going to come to a point where it's going to be indistinguishable. And I think in a lot of instances right now it is. I think the design they're getting much better on. I think they are getting way better in the cameras, and obviously performance on a day-to-day level is as good, if not better, than some of the flagships due to its, similar to stock version of Android, limited animations, and all the other improvements that they do to make their phone unique and special. One thing I do want to point out, which I forgot to mention earlier, is that there is some slides that only have 2 photos. The slides that only have 2 photos, please take note that one of them is the OnePlus 6, and the other one is another camera. It's actually the Pixel 2 XL, because at this point I've already told you what the cameras are. I'm recording this after I recorded the other parts. But the OnePlus 6 really did great. And for a $500 to $600 phone, I can't stress enough just how capable this phone is. And I'm not trying to say that this is the end-all be-all of great phones, because there are certainly a lot of other ones out there that do great jobs in a lot of other areas. But for that price, I couldn't recommend it enough. And again, I do look forward to comparing it to the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2S, because that, again, is a sub-$600 phone with some impressive technology going on in their camera setup, similar to what Huawei does with AI and scene recognition. So I look forward to testing that to the OnePlus 6. I'm just waiting for delivery coming from China, so that may take a little bit of time. But these small companies now are really doing some big things. And I know OnePlus is a subsidiary of a much larger company, but still, I would still consider them not nearly as large as Samsung, Apple, or I know Google's new to hardware and phones in the last 2 years, but they are a much larger company with much larger budgets to make their phone great. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. It did take me some time to put it all together because I wanted to make sure things were as right as I could make them. I am only one person, but I also want to take a second and say thank you. Thank you for everyone who has came to the channel and watched my videos. Thank you for everyone who continues to come and watch. I really do hope that I can bring some different angles to this technology stuff for people just looking for some help, looking for some advice on a regular day-to-day basis. Like I said before, I'm not trying to get very scientific with things because a lot of people, if you're just going to buy a new phone, to buy a new computer, you're just looking to see which one is going to be the best and why or why not you should buy something. That's why I made videos like why you shouldn't buy the iPhone 10, because of its price. And I was just in the comments speaking to a person who was saying that in India, where he was from, the iPhone was $1,300 to $1,400, and asking if I thought the next iPhone was going to be even more, and unfortunately probably is. So, you know, people work hard for their money. People don't necessarily spend a lot on all this stuff so often, and I always try to think about people like my parents who don't know much about this stuff, and they might go to YouTube to see which is better. I know I do. I still do. Even with, you know, my research that I do on a day-to-day, I look to YouTube to see reviews on things that I haven't bought yet, so that if I go out and buy it, I'm not disappointed or misled by, say, marketing or things like that. But anyway, I digress. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I do hope people continue to watch. And again, like always, if you got a suggestion for me, please drop it below. If you have a comment about the video, you know what to do. And I hope to see everyone again in another video, and thanks for watching.